Hi everyone, I'm Nicole Henderson, editor at the web host Industry Review, and I'd like to welcome you to another one of our WIR webinars. Today's session is called 12 Reasons to Join the Internet Infrastructure Coalition, i2Coalition, What You Get and Why It Matters, and it will feature a presentation from Christian Dawson, i2Coalition co-founder and board chairman. Before I hand the presentation over to Christian, I would like to take care of a few housekeeping items. First off, questions. We have a few minutes at the end of the session for your questions, but if you come up with questions during the presentation, you can submit them using the question function in the webinar software. If you ask something and it doesn't get answered, maybe we've run out of time or it's a bit too specific, someone will reach out to you directly after the webinar. And there will also be some contact info on screen during the Q&A period, so you can feel free to reach out that way as well. There will be a video archive of the webinar available if you want to revisit a certain slide or a part of the presentation or share it with someone else. And it will be in the archives at www.thewir.com/webinars as of early next week. And finally, if you are planning on attending HostingCon, the premier industry conference and trade show for web hosting and cloud service providers, it's between June 17th and 19th in Austin, Texas. The i2Coalition has worked with HostingCon to build outstanding panels focused on critical industry topics, including the borderless internet, money-stealing trolls, the future of customer privacy, and a general session titled The Internet in 2020, The Fight for Our Future. So, without further ado, let's get started by turning it over to Christian.
Thank you very much, Nicole. I appreciate it. And I'm going to go ahead and show my screen and invite you all to 12 reasons to join the i2Coalition, what you get and why it matters. First of all, what is the i2Coalition? i2Coalition stands for Internet Industry Coalition. So who are the Internet Industry Coalition? Well, there's me over on the far right. We are companies like yours, and we are made up of individuals who volunteer from companies like yours. Everybody you see in that picture is a board member of the Internet Industry Coalition. All of us are working towards the same goals. All of us are from companies like yours within this industry. Our goal is to try and move this industry forward, to be a singular voice, to give it strength on Capitol Hill because there are strength in numbers. This picture is actually taken during our Internet Advocacy Day on the Hill from earlier this February, where we went up to Capitol Hill in numbers. There were 37 representatives from member companies who went up to Capitol Hill to let our voices be heard, to teach people about our industry and how it works. And so we were taking an active role in making sure that Congress understood how the Internet works and what impact the Internet infrastructure industry has on it. So the Internet is awesome. We know this. It's a vast network of infinite human knowledge, expression, and creativity. And companies like ours build it. But on Capitol Hill, in my experience, the only time that you ever hear about web hosting providers or data centers or things like that is when they're pointing a finger and they're saying, well, you're not doing enough about copyright protection. You're not doing enough about child endangerment. You're not doing enough about cybersecurity. When the fact of the matter is that we've been on the front lines fighting those battles for decades. We could use some more tools to do it better. But in the meantime, while we've been fighting those battles, we've been propping up the entire digital economy. It's all built on the infrastructure that we have created. The nuts and bolts of the Internet. We've built it. And, that means that the entire digital economy is built on the infrastructure that we've developed. Every new business, every new idea, every entrepreneur's vision that is articulated through the Internet, which these days is pretty much everything, it all happens on the racks and stacks of servers that we build and the software that we deploy to put things out into the web, into the cloud. We build it. And so we felt as though somebody needed to go up to Capitol Hill. Somebody needed to go up into up to the people that are attempting to legislate the Internet and say, hey, we're here. We need to have a voice in how things are legislated because what we do is important and it needs to survive and thrive. It needs to be fostered. So we're here to do that. And in the short time that we've been around, we've been making a huge impact. We've gotten coverage from all sorts of great press. We've gotten incredible feedback from the senators and congressmen that we've engaged in all different aspects of internet governance. Just yesterday, we actually sent a letter up to Chairman Goodlatte about our vision of patent reform, and that was covered in the Wall Street Journal and all sorts of incredible publications. We've gotten incredible feedback from members of Congress. In fact, I've got a letter on my desk handwritten by Senator Jerry Moran, thanking him for the things that we're doing for the internet right now. So we've developed incredible, basically, people are listening to us. That's the way to say it. So again, we came together at the very beginning to fight SOPA and PIPA. Before there was the Internet Infrastructure Coalition, there was a group of loosely affiliated organizations called the Save Hosting Coalition. And the goal of the Save Hosting Coalition was completely focused on defeating SOPA and PIPA because we saw what those pieces of legislation had the potential of doing to our industry. They were going to decimate our industry, and we needed to fight them. We did, and we won. Save Hosting Coalition had demonstrable impact in the defeat of PIPA and SOPA. So we knew that we could make a difference, but we saw that, wow, when we took a look at who we talked to on Capitol Hill in the SOPA and PIPA fight, we saw how little people understood how the internet actually worked. The basic the feedback that I got from most of the people that I talked to was that, well, isn't the internet something that AT&T and the telcos build and then, you know, Amazon and Facebook and Google and Apple use? There was no awareness that there were these companies that sat between the telco layer and the user layer, 30,000 of them, representing $55 billion a year in revenue, that had hands-on access to every customer out there that's building something on the web. They had no idea that this entire ecosystem existed. And we needed to explain to them that, yes, these companies exist, and you're going to destroy them with this legislation. So we were able to articulate that message for this particular bill, but we realized that they were coming back, and they were going to come back, that they were going to come back stronger, and that we needed to, for copyright legislation and other types of legislation, be there to have a continued voice in this and continue to be educators about how the internet works and the importance of what it is companies like ours do. So that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to give companies like ours a voice. Companies like ours, meaning the nuts and bolts of the internet, web hosting providers, data centers, registries, registrars, cloud infrastructure providers. These companies are extremely important, and they need to have their stories told. We're in a noble profession. It's an important profession to the economy. It's important for jobs, and so we need to fight for it. Protecting privacy. It's extremely important. One of the things that we're focused on right now is reform of the Electronic Communications Privacy Act. Right now, the way that laws are structured, the government doesn't think that you need a warrant to access email if it's been sitting on a server for more than 180 days. The Electronic Communications Privacy Act predates the internet. And so the definitions that are used by the government to go and try to gather information about your clients is so outdated that every time one of them, a law enforcement agent, comes to one of your companies and tries to get documentation about a client, they're using outdated scripts. It takes time, it takes energy, it takes money that you don't need to be spending in order to enter into an inefficient process to deal with electronic communications. We need to modernize that. We need to get warrants for the cloud. And doing these things are going to demonstrably help your business. We can positively affect your bottom line by you engaging with us to help fight for the reform of the Electronic Communications Privacy Act, one of the things that we are focused on with i2Coalition. We're also focused on copyright reform and patent reform. We want to go after the trolls, the people, especially the non-practicing entities, which are going out there and trying to exploit our industry, trying to milk them for money on things that they are not producing. And so we are actively engaged in the fight against the patent trolls. And if you have not been negatively affected by patent trolls in your company, then count yourself among the lucky ones and cross your fingers, because they're all over the place. It's a problem that is only growing, and you need a voice so that so that we can tell people what a big problem this is, and we can get some change on Capitol Hill. Cybersecurity. It's extremely important, and we want to make sure that the internet is secure, but there's a right and a wrong way to go about cybersecurity. And so as an organization, we are trying to be a voice that is practical when it comes to cybersecurity, that takes into account what can be done and what should be done, that has a voice for the consumer when it comes to privacy protections, because cybersecurity isn't an excuse for privacy out window. We want to help make sure that networks are secure, but we want to do so in a way that supports the multi. So in a way that is technology neutral, because we don't want to have to rewrite these things week after week after week. So cybersecurity is extremely important. We want to be a voice in that, and we are being a voice in that. Copyright. They're going to be harder to defeat the next time. When it comes to copyright issues, we understand that there are valid concerns when it comes to copyright, but the way that they were approaching SOPA and PIPA is untenable. The way that they were approaching the internet and protect our industries, or else we're going to see the same problems that we saw with SOPA and PIPA. This organization is member-driven. It's not your typical that's driven by large moneyed interests. This is driven by companies just like yours. If there are things that you think we should be focusing on, this is the type of organization in which you can step in and you can help us focus on them. We can take, difference with the issues that are important to you as well. Also, best practices. We are, as an organization, creating connections between companies so that when it comes to trying to do things better over time, maybe it is copyright issues or child endangerment issues, we can come together, we can share information, and we can find ways to do things better over time, because if we can develop internet citizens, then that's going to help avoid the government trying to step in and do it for us. So best practices is something that's extremely important to us. Here's the thing. What you don't know might actually hurt you. There's lots of legislation out there. Some of it happens really quickly, and you don't want to be spending your time and your energy trying to figure out what this piece of legislation and that piece of legislation is going to have as far as effect on your business. You don't want to focus your time on trying to watch all of the internet internet issues with global internet governance to know where you need to plug in your time and resources. So let a group like i2Coalition do it for you. It's going to be an easier use of your resources. Ultimately, this is the kind of organization where you can absolutely make a difference. But the thing is that we absolutely need every company who is watching this webinar, because there's strength in numbers. And only if we all come together with a collective voice can we really make a difference. Honestly, legislators care about how many people you're representing, and they take you more seriously as your numbers grow. I'm part of this organization, and you're helping us push our agenda. If you take a look at this graphic, these are awards that we gave out on legislators that have been helping us. There aren't enough voices on Capitol Hill or in internet governance in general of legislators that have taken the time to understand the internet. We can make more, the more connections we can make with the companies like yours, so that you can help us teach the internet as well. And everybody's doing it. These are some of the great companies that have stepped up to be internet good guys. Ultimately, that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to create a group full of internet good guys trying to do the right thing for this industry to help move it forward. And we want to put your company on that list of internet good guys. And once we do, we try to use the resources of the i2Coalition to drive forward the agenda of the companies that are supporting us. We use things like social media to take the news that comes out of our member companies and try and broadcast it to the world to give member companies a tangible benefit for their involvement with their organization. Finally, we ask nicely. We want you to be a part of the effort to make a difference here on the internet, to help see our industry survive and thrive. And with your help, we know that we can make a bigger difference. And so please, definitely, you probably have is how much does it cost? Well, it depends. It depends because we have a sliding scale of membership so that we can, obviously, we have money. The things that we're trying to do cost money, and it's not fair to try and build an organization with numbers of companies and then have a ton of financial burden on the smaller companies. So we have a sliding scale where the companies that are slightly bigger, they pay a little bit more. Ultimately, everybody has the same voice. Go to i2Coalition.com. You can very easily find out where you fall on the membership scale, and you can sign up right there. It's a sliding scale. It starts at $500 a year. So it's very easy to step in and become a member and start making a difference right away. So please sign up to become a member online. Volunteer to help out, because our organization is driven by member volunteers in this industry. What's great about this industry is that so many of us are connected. We have friendships within this industry. And so help us spread the word, because the stronger, we're stronger the more members that we can get. And that's all it's going to. And you absolutely should come to HostingCon. It's going to be great. i2Coalition is sponsoring the entire contents of the industry trends and trends track on Tuesday. We have got, as Nicole said, the Internet in 2020, the fight for our future, the future of customer privacy, money-stealing trolls, and the borderless Internet. We have great lineups of special guests. It's going to be fantastic conversations, and we'll tell you a little bit more about the i2Coalition if you come there. So I highly recommend that you come and check that out. And that is all I have for you today. Would love your questions.
Okay, thanks a lot, Christian.
Nicole?
Yeah, so I've got some questions here. I have one question that asks, why will this group work where others haven't succeeded?
It's an excellent question. As many of you know, industry organizations have attempted to take hold in this industry in the past. I can think of 3 off the top of my head. But I don't think any of them were primarily focused on collectivism when it comes to when it comes to public policy issues. I think that our focus on trying to be a voice for the powerful people in positions of authority over the internet that don't understand it, people saw with SOPA and PIPA, and they see continually with other things, be it ECPA or CISPA or what have you. They see that this is a major issue, that times have changed, and that if we don't come together to get listened to as a group, we may not exist in a few years. So there's a pressing need more than there has been in the past. And I think other organizations have focused on a collective, a whole bunch of different things, including maybe like coming together for insurance benefits and things like that. And by us keeping that narrow focus, I think that this is. Did I lose you, Nicole?
No, I'm still here. Okay, great, thanks. So I've got another question. Hey, Christian, while I get the basic idea, can you tell me how exactly will an organization be making a contribution on issues related to internet freedom as part of i2Coalition, and how does it differ among the various segregated membership levels?
Okay. So how do we make a different? How do we have our voice heard on internet freedom issues? There's a couple of different ways. So we have, as an overarching theme, we as an organization have got to be completely focused on internet education. If we make connections on Capitol Hill, if we make connections with other groups that regulate the internet, be it the ITU or ICANN or what have you, and we spend time teaching them about our industry, teaching them about who we represent. It makes it so that when policy issues are in front of them, they have somebody to call for feedback, which we are now getting. We are now getting calls from senators and congressmen saying, we have this piece of legislation, what do you think? Which is amazing. And they also have enough of a firm understanding of how the internet works so that they're not going to do something completely wrong-headed again, hopefully cross your fingers like PIPA and SOPA. The other thing is that as an organization, now that we're being listened to, even to the extent that we are today, which is fantastic, we get to actually, within our policy committee, comment on legislation when it comes out. We get to interact with legislative committees and send notes to their markup process that expresses the interests and needs of the industry as a whole. So as an example, we have been part of the process of the current ECPA legislation write-up, the rewrite of the Electronic Communications Privacy Act. I had mentioned that before. We have been working directly with Senator Leahy's staff and giving them notes on the legislation as they have attempted to move it through committee. So that's one way that we can actively take a role from a micro perspective, while at a macro perspective, we're pushing internet education in general so that people just have a better understanding of who we are and what we do. Oh, the last part of the question was, sorry, this is a long answer. How does it basically, at the different member payment levels, how does that change? Well, the point is that it's not supposed to. In fact, our entire board of directors makeup is structured so that it is evenly distributed between companies that are on the smaller end of the scale, larger end of the scale, and middle of the scale. We want everybody who comes in, wherever they can afford to pay into the system, to have equal voice and equal weight. Because I think that that's the way that we can effectively message things on Capitol Hill. This is an industry which is relatively unique in that it's predominantly made up of small to medium businesses. So that means that we can find hosting companies or data centers or registries or registrars pretty much anywhere, anywhere on the map. You can point to it. There's probably an internet infrastructure company somewhere there. that gives us a great deal of power when we're dealing with legislators who want to know that it means jobs and economic growth in their district, because we can point to companies within their district. And because we're talking about issues that affect small, medium, and large companies, even the larger companies who are paying more but getting the same voice as the smaller companies are eager to say, sure, that makes sense to me, because in doing so, in basically creating this sliding scale and making it so that the smaller people can have a voice, the smaller organizations can have a voice, you're strengthening the whole message and making it easier to make a difference as a whole.
Okay, awesome. And we have a follow-up to that question. Post-joining, what are the differences between modus operandi and extent of participation of business members and associate members? Any differences?
Well, so yes, there are business members and there are associate members. The business members are the organizations that are directly racking and stacking servers. They are the registries, the registrars, the data centers, the cloud infrastructure providers, and the web hosting providers. The associate members are the service providers to that industry. And so, software providers, hardware providers to that industry. So we're looking for both types of membership. The only real demonstrable difference between a business member and an associate member is that in rare cases where we need to have a organizational vote, where the organization has to decide how to move on a particular major piece of legislation, it is the business members that drive the final decision. Ultimately, besides that, we are seeking engagement from both kinds, business and associate members.
Okay, great. And this you may have touched on a little bit, but we have another question that says, what kinds of members are you looking for most?
I'm sorry, could you repeat that?
Yeah, what kinds of members are you looking for most?
What kind of members are you looking for most? Well, we are looking for we're looking for strength in numbers, so we want to be as inclusive as possible. But I will say this: there are some people that can contribute a lot of time but not a lot of money. Some people that contribute a lot of money but not a lot of time. All of that is great. We are driven by the ability to take on the resources of the companies that the companies have available to provide to us. So I suppose that it's somebody that can help us with numbers, with funding, or with actual work output. And I should say one thing about work output. We have member working groups. We have one on public policy that drives our policy agenda. We have one on internet education. We have one on member best practices, and we have one on member benefits. So if any of that sounds interesting to you, then you can join one of those member working groups and start working with other people that are interested in that particular area to jump right in and get your hands dirty. Now, if you don't have time to do that, that's fine. It's not a requirement of membership, but it would be great to get that help.
Okay, cool. And here's kind of a related question. How do we participate once we join?
Well, once you join, you're going to get a welcome message, and it will introduce you to just the kind of working groups that I was talking about there. The best way to participate is by joining one of those 4 member working groups, which again is not a requirement, but we love it when our members are directly participating. So you would look to potentially join one of those 4 ongoing working groups. Alternately, you can let us know, hey, I don't have time to join a member working group, but I am in, let's say Idaho, And if you have issues that, if you want help with educating Idaho legislators about the internet, I'm interested in doing that. And we can connect you with legislators so that you can help carry our message to them. It's another way to get engaged that we highly, highly encourage.
Okay, terrific. So the next question is, what kind of events does the group do? And I know you've done quite a few recently, so you'll have some to talk about.
That's right. So yes, the Internet Advocacy Day on the Hill was a very exciting event that we did in the Senate office buildings back in February. We're going to do another one next year. And so if you are interested in engaging next year, boy, we would love it if you would come out and help us, again, teach Congress how the Internet works. Last year we had a great agenda. We had Alexis Ohanian, who was co-founder of Reddit. He was our keynote speaker. And then we had Senator Ron Wyden, Senator Jerry Moran, and Representative Darrell Issa, all of whom received awards. In addition to that, we have done FBI tours where we've gone up and figured out and learned from the FBI how our networks are being monitored. We have done a couple of networking events, and we'll continue to do small networking events. And there may be more things that we add in the future. If there are things that you can think of that you'd like to see the organization do, then you can join our member benefit committee, and you can propose them. And we can make that happen because we're member-driven. We also have the capacity to, as issues come about, do member fly-ins around central issues. So let's say we've got the next PIPA SOPA on our hands. This would be the type of organization that could pull members in for Washington visits to come up and specifically address their members of Congress in person on those issues. And if not in person, then certainly remotely.
Okay, and I've got another question. Is the group U.S. or international?
That's an excellent question. We are the Internet Infrastructure Coalition. We are not the Internet Infrastructure Coalition of America. And if you take a look at our main three goals to drive us forward from an Internet education perspective, an Internet best practices perspective, and a public policy perspective, two of those, the best practices and the Internet education, are completely global. And indeed, we understand that the whole Internet is completely global. And we need to be focused on moving forward this industry as a whole. That being said, I have to go back to what I said before about how the organization is member-driven. Right now, about 85% of our members are U.S.-based. And so within our Public Policy Committee, the vast majority of the work that we have done to date has been U.S.-based policy legislation. And likely that will remain the case. So we are, in our policy section, heavily invested in U.S. politics, but our involvement is not U.S. exclusive.
Okay, awesome. So I've got kind of a two-parter question here. The first is, isn't $1,000 a year or $500 a year too trifle an amount to be of any real value? And then I think a related question from another person asks, what do you do with the money you raise?
Oh, very good questions. So first of all, I feel as though we, back when we had no money committed to this organization, back when we were Safe Hosting Coalition, we mounted a pretty good campaign against PIPA and SOPA with very little money spent. I was part of a fly-in group that our organization helped put together that went up to Senator Jerry Moran's office. We sat down and we talked with him. Alexis Ohanian, who I mentioned before, he was part of that group. and the day after Alexis and I and a whole bunch of other people from our industry sat down and talked to Senator Moran, he changed his vote. He basically joined Senator Wyden in the hold against the Protect IP Act, and it was the very first shot against across the bow that started the dominoes falling for PIPA and SOPA. Additionally, Alexis started talking while he was there about blacking out Reddit, which became the big blackout day that helped basically create the death knell for PIPA and SOPA. So I feel as though, as a group, we were able to really have tangible impact on fighting PIPA and SOPA with very little money. I sort of realized that I expected to show up to Capitol Hill and have them say, well, we're not going to pay attention to you because you're not cutting us big checks. And it was sort of just the opposite. Everybody I talked to said, where have you been? We've needed you guys here. We've needed you to explain this stuff to us. We may not be able to outraise some of the people that are potentially against us on some of these big issues like copyright protections. But we can certainly out-explain. And that's something that does cost money, especially because we need to be more organized than we were with SOPA and PIPA. And we need to keep this going in a way that we can't sustain the way we did for the short burst of SOPA and PIPA. But we don't need all the money in the world because, frankly, so what we need is the ability to go up there and explain. As far as where the money gets spent, we have a team that works with us. They manage the day-to-day operations of i2Coalition. The board of directors and the member working groups drive what the organization does, but the actual output, the work product, is done by a team that's in DC and a team that works with them on digital outreach. Those things do cost money. But frankly, that's because, frankly, people that drive the organization, people like me and people like you, we all have day jobs. When I get off this webinar, I need to respond to the 20 emails that have come on or 50 emails that have come into my inbox about the daily operations of my company, and I can't spend my time every day focusing on policy issues. So we've hired people that can, but that still report back to us because nobody knows what is needed most in the internet infrastructure industry than those of us who actually run it.
Okay, awesome. I think you did a great job answering those questions. And it looks like those are all the questions we have, and that's all the time we have for today. So I'd like to thank everyone for attending and for submitting your questions. And of course, I'd like to thank you, Christian. I'd also like to remind everyone to register for HostingCon before early bird expires on May 16th. And you can do that at www.hostingcon.com. Thanks again, everyone, and have a great day.